Physical cabling issues. Think of physical cabling as the vital belts and hoses of your IT infrastructure. Just as you wouldn't tear apart the engine block of a vehicle without first checking if a simple belt has snapped or a spark plug has fouled, a technician never replaces a monitor, projector, or motherboard without rigorously testing the physical cable first. Cables are the primary wear and tear items in computing. For the CompTIA A+ exam, you must be able to visually and logically identify when a cable is failing, how that failure manifests on a screen or network, and how environmental factors can destroy a perfectly good connection. Part 1. The symptoms of cable failure. When a cable starts to fail, it rarely just dies. It usually dies a slow, frustrating death that causes erratic behavior. Color tinting, missing color channels. If a user's monitor suddenly turns entirely pink, yellow, or blue, you are almost always dealing with a failing analog cable, like VGA. The video signal is split into red, green, and blue pins. If the green pin loses contact, the screen will tint magenta, red, and blue. Flickering and intermittent drops. If a monitor works perfectly, but goes black for 2 seconds every time someone bumps the desk, the cable is loose in the port, or the internal copper wires are fracturing. Network degradation. On the networking side, a damaged Ethernet cable might not completely drop the connection. Instead, it might force a gigabit, 1000 Mbps, connection to silently downgrade to 100 Mbps or even 10 Mbps, because it can no longer sustain the higher frequencies over the damaged copper. Part 2. Bent pins and crushed connectors. The ends of the cables take the most physical abuse. Users frequently try to force connectors in upside down or rip them out by the cord instead of the plastic housing. 1. Analog and DVI pins. Legacy video cables like VGA and DVI use an array of tiny, fragile metal pins. The diagnosis. If a user forces a VGA cable into a port misaligned, the pins will bend flat. When they try to plug it in again, the bent pin fails to make contact with the port, resulting in missing colors or a complete no-signal error. The technician's fix. While you can sometimes use a mechanical pencil tip or a tiny flathead screwdriver to carefully bend a pin back into place, the metal is severely weakened. The professional fix is to replace the cable entirely. 2. Modern digital connectors. Cables like HDMI, DisplayPort, and USB-C don't have exposed pins. They have flat friction contacts inside a metal sheath. The diagnosis. These connectors fail when the metal sheath itself gets crushed or bent, usually from a laptop being dropped while plugged in. If the connector does not sit perfectly flush inside the port, the high-speed digital handshake will fail, resulting in a black screen. Part 3. Internal fraying and bend radius. A cable might look perfectly fine on the outside, but be completely destroyed on the inside. The bend radius. Every cable has a minimum bend radius. If you take a thick HDMI or Ethernet cable and bend it sharply at a 90-degree angle to shove a desk flush against a wall, you will snap the microscopic copper wires or the delicate fiber optics inside the protective jacket. The rollover effect. In an office environment, cables that drop onto the floor are frequently rolled over by heavy office chairs. This crushes the internal twisted pairs of an Ethernet cable, destroying its ability to cancel out crosstalk, leading to massive data packet loss. Part 4. Electromagnetic interference, EMI. Sometimes the cable is physically flawless, but the environment is hostile. Copper cables act like giant antennas. The threat. If a user runs an unshielded VGA or Ethernet cable directly over a fluorescent light fixture in a drop ceiling, or wraps it tightly around the massive power brick of a docking station, the electrical magnetic field will bleed into the data cable. The visual symptom. On a monitor, EMI manifests as rolling lines, static, or a wavy distortion that constantly moves down the screen. The fix. Reroute the data cable at least a few inches away from heavy power lines or unshielded motors, or upgrade to a heavily shielded cable, like SDP, shielded twisted pair for networking. Summary for the professional technician. To lock this in for your exam troubleshooting steps. Visual inspection first. Always check for bent pins on VGA DVI and crushed housing on HDMI USB-C. Color tinting. An entirely pink or blue screen is the hallmark of a loose or damaged analog cable missing a color pin. Physical abuse. Ensure cables are not pinched behind desks or rolled over by chairs, which causes internal fracturing. EMI distortion. Wavy lines or static are caused by running unshielded cables too close to heavy power sources or fluorescent lights.